My concern is more once reality sets in, once that crack occurs in the labor market. And notice I'm not saying if, it's once it does, that's where I do worry that we start to see some downside and really panic setting in that we are headed into a recession.
In today's video, Chief Market Strategist of InTheMoneyStocks.com Gareth Soloway tells us all about his latest analysis of the charts as well as his predictions and price targets for Bitcoin. Soloway shares his opinion regarding high inflation rates, the stock market, the crypto market, and the Fed.
Give me your framework from a macro standpoint of how you're trading the markets currently as it sits.
Yeah, so I'm much more of a defensive trader right now. To me, looking at the markets, it's summertime, it's kind of the float in the markets with light volume. So it makes sense with a lot of money still on the sidelines that there's money that's chasing this market. We got the AI craze, all of these other fun things going on, Meta, Nvidia, and all of those stocks just going nuts. I mean, heck, Apple making a new all-time high even. So it's luring all that money that's on the sidelines into the market. There's very light volume, so it keeps the markets buoyant for the time being. My concern is more once reality sets in, once that crack occurs in the labor market. And notice I'm not saying if, it's once it does, that's where I do worry that we start to see some downside and really panic setting in that we are headed into a recession.
What is your current position on Bitcoin right now?
Yeah, so I remain hesitant on Bitcoin, and I'll tell you why. In fact, let me share my screen if that's okay, because I want to show some charts here. So here we have the Bitcoin chart, and if you look at where we were on April 14th of 2023, we were right at this 31,000 marker. And if we zoom out, we can see technically that was a massive level going back to the bull market of 2021, right? So we fell here, then we went up to 65, then we came in and hit it multiple times before going to 69, and then coming back in and finally breaking down. So as long as we kind of stay in this range, I'm skeptical that this is anything but a bear market. And I know people are so bullish on Bitcoin, and long-term I am too, don't get me wrong. I just have been through enough bear markets where it's harder to convince me, because I've been burned so many times thinking it's a new bull market in the past, that I'm still waiting to see. And the one thing I would point out is, I mean, think about the massive moves in some of these tech stocks, right? So again, just look at the last, since we were up at 31,000 here, think about what technology has done. I mean, we've had weeks where I think the NASDAQ has been up almost every single week since then, yet Bitcoin hasn't broke out. And as a risk asset, why isn't that happening? And to me, that's a concern. Now, if we can break above this 31-ish level and hold, then I think you have some momentum to really have a bigger move up on Bitcoin. But till then, at least for me, I'm just remaining hesitant.
Do you feel like this is something that we would see, liquidity starts to become an issue in the market? Where does Bitcoin end up at that point? Do we see it retrace below the 20K mark? Where's your target for this area of time that we're looking at now?
Yeah, and you're bringing up a great thing too, because what I think a lot of investors in crypto aren't kind of formulating. They're thinking, okay, BlackRock ETF, it's really bullish, big money coming in. But I think also if you have a recession and the labor market cracks, there's going to be a reduction in leverage being used. There are going to be certain crypto investors who get squeezed on the leverage side and have to unload, probably some funds out there as well. So it's not all roses, especially if we head into that recession where the stock market comes down. Now, if we flip over to the charts here, there's a level, right? So number one, we're trading between this 31 and 30,000 level. And as long as we stay in that zone, then there's essentially a neutral to positive bias that we can break out. So I would say slightly better than 50% that we could actually break out. This is known as a bull flag. If we break below 30,000 and we get below here on a daily closing basis, that starts to concern me. That tells me, okay, there may be trouble here. Now, where would this go? I think the big answer is right with this trend line. So this would be your next stopping point. This perfectly connects through these lows right through here. And that would mean that, again, if you break below 30 and hold there, you're headed down to about 26. 26 breaks, now you're starting to talk about 20,000 again as your target. And eventually, if that breaks, then you're looking at your lows. So for me as a trader, if you're bullish on Bitcoin, it's so imperative right now that you see a breakout. You have to get this thing to go, because a failed bull flag, this is a bull flag, if it fails, that tells you something. That pattern should not fail. It should lead to further upside. And so it tells you that there's bigger money selling into it. And then you have to start watching these pinpoint levels on the way down. So again, those would be my levels at this point in time. And I think for us as technical traders, you just watch this little narrow band right now and look for the price action. I think that's one of my concerns too. There's no doubt that a spot ETF is a positive, or multiple spot ETFs is a positive for the crypto space, especially for Bitcoin. But the question again too is, I would say, well, how long does it take? Does it take for the SEC to approve it? Because I think investors are piling into Bitcoin thinking it's within a month or two, when in reality, what if it's 6 months? What if it's 12 months? I mean, do investors have the stamina to sit around waiting for it, especially if the stock market starts to decline, if the economy starts to roll over at that point?
One of the ones that I want to look at is Polygon, because Polygon has been a high flyer. It's one that we exited out of earlier this year, but now I'm reconsidering Polygon. I want to get your opinion. When you look at this particular chart, not knowing a lot about the fundamentals of that project, but getting into the numbers and really where the trends are going, what do you see?
Yeah, so Polygon is one that I am semi-intrigued by. The big thing for me is so just recently in the last couple of days, we had this nice move up. But if you look at that high from June 22nd, we right up to it. And with Bitcoin's pullback the last 2 days, we've seen this declining as well. So the big thing to me is this upsloping trend line. As long as that holds, you have this wedge pattern that's getting tighter and tighter. And ultimately, if you can get a breakout on Polygon above this downsloping longer term trend line, which goes all the way back to early this year, that would be a big breakout and a potential signal that this has further upside. So right now it's kind of what I would consider in the gray zone, where you're stuck in, and I can even erase this trend line to kind of even make it clearer. So really you have this wedge pattern, and what you're watching for as a technician is, does it break above, let's say 73 cents? Okay, that's very bullish. But if it breaks below 64 cents, that would then potentially participate or signal a move back down to the lows of 50 cents.
Could AI be a recession killer? Possibly, with all the things that are happening, all these tech companies. What do you think?
I think this is a double-edged sword. AI is 100% a double-edged sword. It's going to increase productivity, right? So there's a potential that it can lessen the impact, and it can even help inflation come down. But it also is going to cause layoffs. In fact, I was reading an article last night that talked about multiple tech companies that have already, in fact, IBM was one of them, that said, we are halting hiring in any zone that AI in the next 6 or 12 months can do. And so what my concern is that while it may lessen a recession in this cycle, does it then exacerbate a recession in the future as more and more people find themselves out of jobs due to AI?
Is he still in the camp that Bitcoin will hit sub 15 by Q4? What's your feeling on that?
I still think that's a possibility, but again, a lot is determined here by this 30 to 31,000 zone. So if we break back below 30,000 and we start trading back towards 26, then I do think by the end of the year, you could see that 15,000-ish level, the lows again being retested. But again, price action could change. And again, I think for me, and it's interesting, on the little the questions that you were asking, one of the things that I think could be the most bullish is not up there, but it's if we get clarity on the security aspect of crypto. That would be insane. Like just the clarity alone, and you could see some of these alts double and triple in value.